an ounce of gold. So I asked the question before I went to break, which country had the best performing market in 2010? Hint to all of you, it was not the United States of America. Give up? Well, guess what? The best performing global market was Sri Lanka's CSE. It was up 96% for the year.
Sri Lanka is an island nation with a rich cultural heritage and a written history of over 2,500 years. Nestled below the southern tip of India, Sri Lanka is home to 21 million ethnically diverse people, including Sinhalese, Tamils, Muslims, Burghers, and Malays. It is Asia's oldest democracy and a hub of religious tolerance. Sri Lanka is also the rising star of the Asian economy. Situated at the center of global shipping routes, it plays a vital role in international trade, linking East and West. The country is famous for producing and exporting its world-renowned Ceylon teas, clothing from major global manufacturers, rubber products, jewelry, and gems, such as blue sapphires and Ceylon rubies, as well as coconut products, spices, and a variety of herbs. Its stock market has in recent years been one of the world's best performing exchanges. Sri Lanka's economy is currently on the rise and is expected to grow by 7.2% in 2010. Amid a global economic downturn, Sri Lanka has demonstrated economic resilience, emerging as a success story for others to emulate. Tourism plays an increasingly important role in Sri Lanka's booming economy, and Sri Lanka has been recognized as a world-class tourist destination. The natural beauty of its tropical forests, beaches, mountainous landscapes, and cultural heritage make it a place of unrivaled splendor that has long been praised by travel writers. In January 2010, the New York Times named Sri Lanka its top tourist destination. National Geographic also named Sri Lanka one of its 25 best trips of the year. The magazine found that, quote, Sri Lanka is finally starting to look like its old self, a peaceful destination where surf lineups are non-existent despite world-class waves, and centuries-old tea estates are lined with mountain bike-ready trails, end quote. During the first half of 2010, tourist arrivals doubled compared to the same time the previous year. In May 2009, Sri Lanka prevailed in a decades-long conflict against the terrorist group Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. A U.S. Senate report called the victory one of the few times in history that a terrorist group has ever been defeated. Sri Lanka has now returned to peace and prosperity. The government, with the assistance of foreign aid, has devoted millions of dollars to develop and restore life in the areas affected by the decades-long conflict. Roads and other infrastructure have been rebuilt, and social development programs are in place and more are being planned. Most people displaced by the fighting have returned home as the country focuses on healing and reconciliation. Sri Lankans gained universal suffrage in 1931 and independence from the British in 1948. Continuing its rich traditions of democracy and political freedom, elections were held in 2010 throughout the entire country for the first time since 1983. Sri Lankans went to the polls twice in 2010, first to elect a president and then a new parliament. The people of Sri Lanka re-elected President Rajapaksa with a record mandate. In the April parliamentary elections, the president's party won 2/3 of the vote, a resounding victory for the president's policies. Since May 2009, Sri Lanka has experienced a tremendous political, social, and economic transformation that has benefited and rejuvenated all Sri Lankans. The country is committed to peace, reconciliation, and prosperity for all, with the hope of making Sri Lanka the wonder of Asia.
19 down and 1 to go. But before we find out what it is, here's a quick recap. At 10 was one of the Caribbean's finest, St. Lucia. At 9, the eastern flavour of Hong Kong. At number 8, the dreamy Seychelles. The island of the gods, Bali, came in at 7, while Sicily made it to 6. At number 5, Manhattan Island. And at number 4 was Mauritius. At 3, we had magical Zanzibar. And at 2, exotic Sri Lanka.
Marco Polo, who was probably the first world traveller, He called it his favourite island. He called it a jade pendant in the Indian Ocean, and that's exactly what it is. It's got absolutely everything.
It's got some amazing undiscovered beaches. You can still very much there have a beach to yourself.
And with 100 miles of unspoilt sandy beaches and some magnificent coral and marine life, Sri Lanka is arguably one of the world's greatest islands for beaches.
It's got a wonderful history and culture in a really small space.
And you don't get to number 2 without some must-see sights. And the ancient city of Sigiriya, a 5th century fortress perched atop a rock, is unmissable, not least for the views.
You've got amazing national parks with elephants and leopards.
The wildlife is a major highlight. The Elephant Orphanage at Pinnawala is the best of its kind. And from starting in 1975 with just 7 jumbos, it now has 65, making it the largest herd in captivity.
You've got lovely food. If you like your spicy curries, then this is definitely the place to go.
You go to Sri Lanka and you can find just a little bit of everything. You couldn't be bored in a million years.
From that refreshing soak in a pool to way up in the misty cool, from the swell and the swish to that taste bud titillating dish, from an encounter with the ancient past to a jungle impression that will surely last. From the bedazzling sparkle of gems to diving underwater with snorkel or lens. From observing the likes of organic devotion to submitting to expert Ayurvedic manipulation. From pursuing adventure or even genteel sports to shopping for items of all sorts. From undertaking treks and walks to meeting pachyderms up close at our wildlife parks. Feel the heat and magnificence of our festive seasons. Even as you sample the piquant fragrance of spices and seasonings. For this is Sri Lanka, the resplendent isle. An ancient cross point from east to west, compact and delightful, with people of alluring shade and vivacity. welcoming you to a land like no other.